Hello, BookTube. Well, it's a little bit later than the last video that I made, that monstrous hour-long video that I made. It's quite a bit hotter. The bean has disappeared to the shade of the bedroom. I've left this tiny window open just for cross breeze, but I'm thinking now that the sun has moved around so that it's bearing on that window, I'll probably close it because that's just importing hot air into the room. And if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know this channel has plenty of hot air as it is. So I'm pretty sure that I will just lock up the whole place against the weather outside and hope to ride it out. Or just when it gets really bad later on, in about an hour or two, this whole place is going to start to radiate heat, which is really bad, and radiate the stored heat of the day. During those 2 hours, I think probably the AC unit will be necessary. But in the meantime, we have a little more mail. I thought we'd go through some more mail together. There will be no offending items this time around. There will be no Chromebooks. There's just books. Not Chromebooks, but books. Including one that was mistakenly opened off camera. So we'll talk about that for a bit, because I want you to know what these books that are coming out. I'm always interested in hearing which ones strike you as most interesting. And this one is, I don't think I have a sheet for it. No, I don't. So I don't know when this comes out, probably August. This is by Jeffrey Kluger, and it's called Holdout, with a novel right there on the astronaut's helmet. So let's see what we have here. Veteran American astronaut Belka Wally Beckwith didn't plan it this way. When a freak accident befalls the International Space Station and injures her and 2 other astronauts on board, Russian cosmonauts who are keen on following the rules, NASA and Roscosmos order all astronauts to abandon ship immediately. In an unprecedented breach of command, Wally refuses to return to Earth. And as her fellow astronauts blast off towards home, the trajectory of her life veers dramatically off course. Hundreds of miles below, the Amazon rainforest is burning. Every day, families are ripped apart, entire villages are destroyed, and the forest, Earth's greatest natural resource, is devastated. Even worse, the most influential governments in the world, including the United States, turn a blind eye as the Brazilian government attempts to commercialize for one sole purpose: profit. As the ISS orbits the Earth, Wally watches the blaze of fires from above. She knows people down there and wants to harness her renegade platform, even if it means putting her career and life at stake. As the clock ticks down, is there enough time for Wally to make a difference? Can she make it home at all? That, I think you would admit, sounds pretty fascinating. That sounds pretty fascinating. I admit, in the last 18 months, I've thought often of the International Space Station and the astronauts who are living there, who have not had to worry. They're the only people, the only humans anywhere in the universe who have not had to worry about COVID-19. And who get to sort of, I mean, the station is provisioned, but you can't live there indefinitely. But they, nevertheless, in a way, they are quite literally floating above the problems of the modern day. I've often thought about them, and this is, what happens if someone on that space station decides, I don't know, to homestead, or maybe to try and affect the world below. We shall see. The burning of the Amazon rainforest, huge tracts of it every day, to burning, to logging, is on my mind as well, because I recently read Meg Lohman's book, The Arbornaut, about life in the upper canopies of the Earth's forests, the Earth's tall, old-growth forests and jungles and whatnot. And in that book, Meg Lohman, who is the expert on the subject of forests on Earth, just matter-of-factly says that the Amazon has gone beyond the point of return, that it can't be reclaimed. Which, considering how much of the Earth's atmosphere is produced by the Amazon, that really struck me. So this is going to strike me too. I'll have to double-check the date on this and see if it's a late July release. I'll probably put it on the nightstand soon. Otherwise, I'll leave it go for a bit. Let's see what this next one is. Can't make a very long video, not only because I have to get these video lengths under control again. These can't all continue to be 40-minute videos. But also because, what's we got here? What is this? What is this? Oh, it's some sort of invoice, so we don't need that, do we? But also because it's a little bit warm, and I want to be checking on Frida. Oh my, okay. Okay, great. What is the date on this? September. This is by Sylvain Seipel, translated by William Rodemar, and this is The State of Israel versus the Jews. So explosive. This will be almost certainly an open letters review because I don't think I have an editor right now for any venue that will want to review this book. Too explosive. But maybe not. I will certainly ask around. What have we got here? So the author is an award-winning journalist. More than a decade ago, the historian Tony Judd considered whether the behavior of Israel was becoming not only bad for Israel itself, but also on a wider scale, bad for the Jews. Under the leadership of Benjamin Netanyahu, this issue has grown ever more urgent. In The State of Israel versus the Jews, veteran journalist Sylvain Seipel addresses it in depth, exploring Israel's rightward shift on the international scene and with regard to the diaspora. The author reviews the little-known details of the military occupation of the Palestinian territory, the mindset of ethnic superiority that reigns throughout Israel, the Israeli colonial camp that is largely in the majority, and the adoption of new laws, the most serious of which establishes two-tier citizenship between Jews and non-Jews. He shows how Israel has aligned itself with authoritarian regimes and adopted the practices of the security state, including the use of technologies such as the software that enables the tracking and ultimately assassination of Saudi Arabian journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Lastly, The State of Israel versus the Jews examines the impact of Israel's evolution on recent years on the two main communities of the Jewish diaspora in France and the United States, considering how and why public figures in each differ in their approaches. I love this subject in a dark kind of way. It brings out the best in its writers. This is going to be a difficult read, though. And I don't think there's any doubt that Israel's continued occupation of Palestinian territories is bad for Israel and for Jews in the diaspora. I don't think there's any doubt of that. I mean, in the last highly televised eruption of violence, of wide-scale violence in the area, just what was it, a month ago? I watched carefully on social media. I watched carefully the punditry on YouTube from France, Great Britain, and the United States, and I have never seen the punditry reaction to such an eruption of violence be as strongly anti-Israel as it was in all three of those countries. And that is bad. That is very bad for Israel. Israel says, touts that it is the only democracy in the region, touts that it has the legal right to the land that it is occupying, is defiant of international law that says that it is not in legal occupation of that land. But the one immovable fact in this whole story is that Israel cannot do any of the things it's doing without the United States. A huge percentage of Israel's budget comes from the United States. If that were endangered, and public opinion is the only thing that could endanger it, that could signal a massive change in Israeli behavior and politics. I had a friend a long time ago, long before, presciently actually, a long time ago, decades ago, who said, we were talking over wine and calzones as usual late at night, and we were wondering, we were touching on all the hot spots in the world, and we got to the Arab-Israeli conflict, and I was talking about the two-state solution, and borders set in the 1960s, agreements set in the 1960s, agreements set in the 1940s, and my friend just stopped and said, the only thing that will bring about a solution to this problem is money. If the United States threatens Israel with the withdrawal of money, then the problem will get solved. And I thought at the time that was very simplistic. And I wonder now, it may not be right, but I'm not sure that it's simplistic. One way or another, September. Those of you who are interested in the subject, you're probably going to want to read this book right along with me. And then we have this next one. This next one is oddly shaped. It's oddly floppy. But it's definitely from a publisher. It's not from one of you. But I don't know what this could be. Let's see what this is. We'll find out together what this. Oh my! What the? Here, let me grab this envelope. No. Okay. How very strange. Okay. I think there's something going on here that I don't really know about. I'll have to inquire and see. This is from Arcadia Publishing. And a lot of you will know Arcadia Publishing because you go to your bookstore. If you have a retail bookstore near you, they often will have a whole display of these books. Arcadia Publishing hit a gold mine doing slim, heavily illustrated little paperbacks of various locations, taking you through the history of that location. A lot of people would go to a big retail bookstore, find the Arcadia book on their own location or on the location where they're vacationing, and buy one or both. And this is a new Arcadia book. This is by A.C. Theokas, and it's called Martha's Vineyard Through Time, Tourism and the Cleansing Sea. You see, it's one of these books, one of these little Arcadia Publishing books. And the reason that I'm raising a huge question mark about it is because somehow or other this has to come to me through the good offices of the Martha's Vineyard Gazette. The Martha's Vineyard is an island off the coast of Massachusetts. For those of you who are aware of your American geography, Massachusetts is a rectangle with a hook extending out into the Atlantic Ocean. And just past that hook is an island called Martha's Vineyard. Further out is an island called Nantucket. But just past that hook is an island called Martha's Vineyard, which is a popular vacation resort and has been for a long time. And there is, Martha's Vineyard Gazette has a broadsheet, an old-style floppy newspaper. We saw it in my earlier video, the Martha's Vineyard Gazette. And I am the book reviewer for the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, and this cannot be a coincidence. This cannot be. It has to be that I'm going to be reviewing this for the Vineyard Gazette. This comes out at the end of July, so plenty of time to review it. I'll read it tonight. No East Coast summer resort has as intriguing a beginning as that of Martha's Vineyard. Before it became a tourist mecca, it already had thousands of summer visitors, but visitors who came for salvation, not the sun. Wesleyan Grove, the site of the most successful campground revivals held anywhere, provided congregants with communal support for their new evangelical lives. The Vineyard Campground, however, also attracted those who sought physical expression in sunshine and sea air more than redemption. Local investors spotted the financial opportunity this presented, leading to the creation of the first town in the entire United States designed and built expressly for tourism. Photographs representative of this period of early Martha's Vineyard are herein paired with contemporary ones. There have been changes, but the basic yearnings of summer vacationers remain as they were 150 years ago. Oh, fantastic. So, okay, and here you have an example. That is the same spot with two different eras. How wonderful. Oh, this is going to be so much fun. Oh, there's the ferry leading to the vineyard. There's the difference between the ferries. How wonderful. Oh, this is going to be so much fun to go through. Okay, and then I will find out. I think I can safely say I will be reviewing this book. I just don't know when, but I know where. I'm pretty sure I will. I will fire up the old email to my editor as soon as I finish this video. See if this got to me through his good offices. But one way or another, it's prime for fodder for the vineyard, especially in season. Right, the vineyard is a summer resort, so the population on the little island swells by 1,000% during the summer. So you're going to want a thing like this in season because this book will be in the vineyard bookstores. Okay, what is the next one? What is this next one? Getting lots of paper here. I'm getting active wind from my melodramatic window. Oh my! Okay, great. Fantastic. Okay, no date on this thing, but it comes out at the end of September. This is by Eli Saslow, who won the Pulitzer Prize, and it's called Voices from the Pandemic. Americans tell their stories of crisis, courage, and resilience. I believe that face is made up of thousands of faces. But we're going to get, as I mentioned on this channel, we're going to get tons and tons of books about the pandemic. Not only frontline stuff like this, although these are predictably the first ones out of the gate. Because the COVID pandemic is still going on. It's still raging all throughout the world, and it stands a chance of getting worse. So you can't write definitive histories on it, even though Lawrence Wright has tried to do that. Instead, you have to try different angles, because the dust hasn't settled for you to write even a first draft of history. But, as I've mentioned, it is the biggest historical event that any of us has lived through, except for the handful of us that lived through World War II. So it stands to reason there are going to be countless books on the subject, and I tend to read them all. So what have we got here? Eli Saslow is a Washington Post reporter who's won the Pulitzer Prize. The COVID-19 pandemic was a world-shattering event affecting everyone in the nation. It's a very American way to put things, isn't it? One sentence typifies the American view of life. A world-shattering event affecting everyone in the nation. And other nations. From its first ominous stirrings, renowned journalist Eli Saslow did not have ominous stirrings. Okay, he came about in the result of a pregnancy like everybody else. I guess those of you who've been pregnant might say it's full of ominous stirrings, but I think you know what I mean. It's a dangler. Eli Saslow began interviewing a cross-section of Americans, capturing their experiences in real time. An exhausted but anguished EMT risking his life in New York City, a grocery store owner feeding his neighbors for free in lockdown New Orleans, an overwhelmed coroner in Georgia, a Maryland restaurateur forced to close his family business after decades, an Arizona teacher wrestling with her fears and her obligations to her students, rural citizens adamant that the whole thing is a hoax, and retail workers attacked for asking people to wear masks, patients struggling to breathe, and doctors desperately trying to save them. Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm not going to miss it. I'm not going to read it right away because it's a September release, but I'm not going to miss any of these books, and this one sounds really good. And then we have the last book, which this is technically a box, but I promise, even though it's technically a box, I promise it is not a Chromebook. It is not. It is not a Chromebook. There are no more Chromebooks coming. So what is this next one? Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. This is the new Ken Follett. Fantastic. So this comes out in early November, and it's called Never. Big, thick thing. Look at that. Very nice. What have we got here? In the Sahara Desert, 2 elite intelligence agents are on the trail of a powerful group of drug-smuggling terrorists. Okay, so not a historical novel. Back to contemporary thrillers. Risking their lives, and, when they fall desperately in love, their careers at every turn. Nearby, a beautiful young widow fights against human traffickers while traveling illegally to Europe with the help of a mysterious man who may not be who he says he is. In China, a senior government official with vast ambitions for himself and his country battles against the older communist hawks in the government, who may be pushing China and its close military ally, North Korea, to a place of no return. And in the United States, Pauline Green, the country's first woman president, navigates terrorist attacks, illegal arms trading, and smear campaigns of her blustering political opponent with a careful and deft diplomacy. She will do everything in her power to avoid starting an unnecessary war. But when one act of aggression leads to another, the most powerful countries in the world are caught in a complex web of alliances. They can't escape. And once all the sinister pieces are in place, can anyone, even those with the best information and skills, stop the inevitable? Okay, so what have we got here? This is a thriller full of heroes and villains, false prophets and elite warriors, jaded politicians and opportunistic revolutionaries. So this is a return after Pillars of the Earth and World Without End and Column of Fire. This is a return to a world-straddling Tom Clancy-style political thriller of a type that launched Ken Follett's career. That's just fine by me. I always thought he was really good at that. So I wouldn't trade his historical fiction for all the mud in Egypt, but I'm glad that he gets a chance to do this as well. That's fantastic. So that comes out in early November, and those of you who think the same way maybe have fond memories of Ken Follett's terrific international sort of thrillers. You have another one coming. You have one to look forward to in the winter. Great. Okay, fantastic. So that is our mail for today. As usual, a mixed bag. We have Never by Ken Follett, a return to espionage thrillers. We have Voices from the Pandemic by a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet. We have Martha's Vineyard Through Time, Tourism, and the Cleansing Sea. One of these Arcadia publishing books that I'm sure you have seen. You don't recognize them with the color covers. Usually they have sepia tone covers and they are just brown. But I'm sure that you've seen your share of them. And this is a new one about the vineyard. And then The State of Israel versus the Jews. Bound to start arguments. Be interested to see what kind of courage it gets. And finally, Holdout by Jeffrey Kluger, about one conscientious astronaut in orbit over a burning Earth. What will that be? What can you do with a story like that? I can't wait to find out. And unlike the rest of these books, with the possible exception of the Vineyard book, I'm going to read this right away because I'm pretty sure its date is coming up. So there you go. There is a sweltering second mail haul today. 96 degrees Fahrenheit here in Boston. Not expected to last, which makes it hard to assume a kind of aggrieved, put upon attitude. It's not expected to last. It is gross. It is grotesque, yes. And the pavement outside is so hot that, like I mentioned in my earlier video today, I'm really hesitant to take Frida on any kind of frequent or long walks. And that's getting me evil looks from her, but it's for her own sake. But it's all going to end. The next week is not predicted to have temperatures anything like this. So I think you can put up with one inhospitable day. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.